10x your service design offering with Smapply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smapply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smapply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of This Is HCD. In this episode, we speak to the brilliant Megan Dell, a human-centered design leader based in Melbourne, Australia, and currently head of UX for 99 Designs. We get Megan's perspective on what makes a good and bad leader and drill deeper into the organisational and cultural considerations that let the human-centered design methodology bloom. Also on the podcast, we had the excellent Tara Vanna Amarongan, the Group Design Director for Sydney and Canberra for Fjord, who joined the conversation along with myself and Mark Catanzariti. Before we jump in, however, as this podcast is recorded in the Sydney CBD, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the land where we meet today and pay respect to their elders both past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening in today. So let's jump straight in. Hello and welcome to This Is HCD podcast. Today we're going to be discussing what does effective human-centered design leadership look like. And I'd like to welcome Megan Dell to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. And we also have Tara V from Fjord.
Good morning.
I've hopped over Tara's last name because I'm struggling. How do you say your last name?
Van Amerongen.
Oh, okay, it's Dutch. I'm struggling with that, so I'm just going to call her Tara V for the podcast. And we also have Mark here as well, who's the co-host of the podcast. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
How's it going? And my name is Gerry Scullion, as you may have already picked up from the podcast title. So, Megan, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into design.
So I originally worked as an artist and needed to earn some money. So I essentially got into this thing called design, which was, applying my more creative practices into digital work. And I kind of fell into user-centered design through working in a call center of all places, and kind of worked my way through working on the website for a big insurance company. Yeah. So these days I head up UX at 99 Designs, and I've worked in leadership roles in a few other big Australian companies.
Okay. Excellent. So thanks for being a delight to have you here. Tara, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. So I don't come from a design background. I actually come from a very, very small town in rural Canada, and I went to business school to take over the family business. And I've been doing sort of consulting and sort of digital strategy roles until about 4 years ago. I was flagged on an HR list for design training. And 2 days in, I was like, this is it. This is what I have to do. And it was just sort of the way forward to ethically do what users really want and spend money in corporates in a more responsible way. So haven't looked back since. And today I run a team of 50 designers at Fjord, running Sydney and Canberra.
Right, excellent. Well, delighted to have you both here. It's a super interesting topic. The people on the Slack channel have been asking lots of questions and feeding into this topic. So let's kick it off. Let's talk a little bit about what does effective human-centered design leadership look like to you, Megan?
I think it's a lot about enabling the team and setting the vision and kind of helping them get on with their work. Essentially, you're championing design. Like throughout the company, you've got your eyes set on what the company goals are as well, and you're really helping empower the designers kind of get that done, as well as, I guess, drumming up a lot of interest and passion within the company as well about human-centered design, and kind of getting other people really involved in that practice as well, even if they're not traditionally a designer.
Before we kicked off the podcast, we were chatting a little bit about like the behaviours that a good leader displays. But we also discussed a little bit about what non-design leaders look like. So rather than just thinking of human-centered design leadership, just looking pure at what does a good leader look like? What do you want from a leader? So tell us about what your thoughts are on leadership.
Look, for me, I put such great emphasis on this, and this is, for me personally, something that I'm always reading more books about, listening to podcasts, watching videos, because I think that like I've still got a lot of room to grow in that area as well. But I think that you really need like the passion to improve as well as constantly learn, which is kind of exactly what I'm doing. but also like great empathy and getting to know your team as well. We were talking just before, and Tara was kind of saying how like each of the designers are very different people with different motivations and passions on the team. And I think it's kind of tapping into that, knowing how to tailor your approach to the different team members, as well as kind of being able to work your way through the company as well and work with other kind of areas, be it engineering, product, sales, marketing, and being able to relate to those areas as well.
Tara, do you want to add anything to that? Like, what does a good leader look like as opposed to a design leader, a good leader?
Yeah, I think it's really about finding out, how do you give people runway? What do they need to grow? And how do you keep them in flow? And what do they need to flourish? I think that's super important. I always think of the best boss I ever had. She said to me, I was working in a bank at the time, and she said, Tara, if your life's goal is to be a hairdresser, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you to be a hairdresser. I was like, what? We're working in a bank. That's not in my job description. That's not even any role in this organization. But she said, I want you to be doing what's best for you in the world, whatever that looks like. And I also fully believe somewhere else, there's somewhere where there's a hairdresser who really wants to be a banker, and they have a boss that's trying to help them make the transition. And that's always stuck with me throughout my career, that I have people who want to be in design or want to come in design or actually want to transition out of it. So for me, it's finding pathways for those people, giving them what they need, giving them interesting work, opportunities, coaching, and then just getting out of the way.
Okay, that's interesting. So do you want to become a hairdresser?
No, I think my French stylist does a good job on her own.
No, very good. So let's think about human-centered design. Like, what can go wrong if you don't have a good human-centered design leader in organizations? Well, what are your thoughts? Both of you, I'll open it up to you.
Look, I think that because the design team within the wider organization is, as we're talking on Slack a little bit, it's like a kind of a glass house or a garden that you really need to tend to and protect in a certain way. Like if that starts to die, I mean, it's who is really looking after the end user of your product and who is kind of bringing that through the organization. Like they're really the champions of that, and you kind of need that to flourish to ensure that you're not just forgetting about, okay, who are we designing these things for?
So you're speaking about the culture there, the culture of an organization. Is that what you're talking about, really?
Well, yeah. I think so, yeah.
So, because for me personally, and Tara, feel free to stop me here, but like culture is the biggest thing for enabling any design methodology to succeed. But I'm keen to understand your thoughts on who owns the drive for a cultural shift.
Yeah, that's a really ambiguous thing. Like you can't even say this is culture, or you have all these companies who are like, we have a culture plan. It's like, well, that's sort of the result of many things happening. It's education and, understanding what design is. It's people flourishing in their work. And it's having mechanisms and ways for design to enter in the organization, and for, the more sort of linear analysis people to understand the creatives, and also the other way around. And culture is the manifestation of all of those things going right. It's kind of the vibe. It's not tangible. You can feel it, but you can't say that's culture on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
To your question about like who owns the culture or who's responsible for it, I mean, it's everybody, right? And you want to bring in more people that embody that culture and can help, just keep it going and improve on it as well.
But is it a design function, because we're ultimately trying to get a human-centered design, and the word design is in there, it often falls back, in my experience, on the role of the designers to enable that culture to succeed.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really interested in, because if you bring it forward to the C-level and you ask them to support you, they're going to want to know what the ROI is, and why should we change the culture? What's in it for us? Now that's been like a little bit kind of like black and white.
Yep.
But what is in it for, like, what are the benefits you can see out of a great design culture?
I notice, in order to get there, I noticed that with the design teams, I often have to give them permission and empowerment. I think working in Australia, I found very much permission culture, like, can I do that? And they're waiting for someone to sort of bless them to do something. So sometimes we appoint people in the studio and say, right, you're a culture champion. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, whatever you want to do that is a cultural activity or a push for something, or something a bit left of center that shows that, we're different or creative, and you're using your creative juices to do something for the betterment of the team.
Yeah.
To really get people to think differently or gain a new skill or improve their craft or whatever that looks like, which is really quite important. But what it looks like for me is that people love coming to work. I have people come back on Friday. We have studio days. People come from, say a big corporate, and they're like, oh, it's so good to be in the studio. What does that feel like? Why is it there? They're like, I'm with my own people. We've got a great work environment. The tunes are pumping. There's food in the kitchen, and the barista knows my order. All of that feels good together. So what does that all look like? That's a combination of several different elements. Interesting work, great people. They feel relaxed. And also there's just that acceptance of I'm with my crew, which is great.
Yeah. I think often I hear of startups and they get the ping pong table and they get the pool table and then they go, hey, we're really fun loving and, come join us. We've got ping pong championships on Wednesdays. What are your thoughts on that kind of superficial startup culture that's tends to be quite generic and cliche?
Yeah. You just talking through that reminded me of, so we've just recently been hiring and I had to go in and adjust the information, like the about us with the company and take away some of that stuff about the ping pong because it just doesn't, it feels really superficial. And for design and for the HCD kind of centered company, you really want it to be a lot more meaningful and to kind of tap into, hey, these are some of the challenges that you're working on. Here is what the culture is like, and we really care about our customers or the goals that we're setting out to achieve. I think that it's a lot more than that. Hey, you'll get a shiny new MacBook and play ping pong at lunchtime and have an awesome coffee.
Yeah,
people want more than that, and I think anyone can just buy a table tennis table and talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I actually had a really interesting, one of the most interesting coffees I had this year was with a lady called Aubrey Blanche from Atlassian, and she's the head of global diversity for the organization. And she was explaining about the care and attention to detail they go to get a representative community fit based on each of the offices globally. So I'm really interested to get your perspective on the importance of diversity into a culture and how that can actually enable and affect the human-centered design leadership.
Yeah.
Big question, I know. But
yeah, it's funny because it's been on my mind because with our design team at 99, it was actually turning into there was going to be a lot of females in the team with this recent round of hiring. And I had to kind of stop because everyone's saying hey, we need more women in tech. And I kind of had to stop and think, well, hang on, my team's going to be dominated by females. I don't think I want that either. I don't think that's a good cross range. I think it's really important though. I would be looking for older people to join the team, people with kids. If I've already got people with kids, and I want some single people in the team. It's just more than male, female, or the color of your skin as well. And I think that everyone will bring, different life stories to the table and different ways to approach a design. I think we've got a long way to go as well. I really like what you were saying about your contact and how they would look at the kind of the area that they're hiring in and go, okay, we've got 20% of people look like this or have this kind of lifestyle or whatever. Let's try and hire that into the team. I'd really love to do a bit more of them.
So why is that important?
If you just build a team where everybody is the same, you're going to be creating the same outcomes. You're not going to have fresh thinking or different ways to solve the problem. And there'll be things that you just never dream about that somebody else who, may be really challenging for you in the team that they can bring to the table.
Tara, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's also really boring. I mean, if I worked with just myself, someone who looked and spoke and thought like me, that would be really boring.
I think it would be great. 20 Taras in a room.
Oh, that's a nightmare. Yeah, it's people challenging thoughts, but I think the conversation on diversity, I think there's, a lot more depth that can be added. And obviously all the specs of a person, are sort of the leading indicator that someone thinks differently and approaches things differently. And it's really important to have just different experiences. And what I love is our leadership team is very, very diverse, also from different countries. We've got academics, we've got ex-consultants, we've got, career art directors, everyone there. And what I love is there's no competition that we're, all leaders and we all are competitive with each other and we have the same skill sets. There's this really inherent acceptance and recognition that you have your thing and you're the person to go to on X and you're really good at it. This person's a really good ideas person. This person's really about getting stuff off the line. That person, they smash every client interaction and that's what they use. So everyone gets each other's strengths and I can go to work and still learn. And even if you might say, oh, you're sort of at the top of the pyramid of the business, I'm always feeling like I'm the dumbest person in the room and learning and challenged every day. And as a leader, I still want that. I'm terrified of being the one who knows everything because then my journey is stopped.
So when you're saying there, like about being able to go to the right people, is that a non-documented thing, or is that just something that people are aware about?
Yeah, I think it's what, sort of want to be known for and famous for. I mean,
within the business.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Consulting is always a bit about profiling yourself and results. And that's sort of, one thing that I learned in my early career, that there's what you want to be known for and what you want to be interested in and what you talk about and where your energy goes. And then there's also the work that's assigned to you. Yeah. And so, on paper, a lot of our leadership team are assigned the same things, but we're known for different things and we have different strengths, and that's really okay.
So is that something that's discussed at the leadership level? Like Tara, you're known for being bubbly and approachable, or like is it a categorization of people?
It's always in the side chat, right? And the jokes in between. But we also will say, oh, we need someone to go present at you at Australia. Or, we have this really tough client. Who can we send in that will just turn the situation around? And in those discussions, you think, who's the best person for the job, or who will flourish in that environment? I have some designers, leaders that will get squashed in a certain environment, others who will just kick ass and take names.
Yeah. All right. So if you imagine we've got a hypothetical business, we're all in business together, and we're looking for the head of design, what are the behavioral stuff that we're going to look for on that resume, and also when we meet them, to make sure that they can do the job? And if, say, the organization is like it's a startup, it's in the startup space, it's not like an organization culture that's been going for 20 years or 30 years, it's a relatively new culture. So we're designing a new culture. Well, what is it we're looking for in that person when they present themselves?
Because you said that it's a bit more of a startup culture as well, I assume then you need someone who's able to do a mix of like getting in amongst it and on the tools, as well as like working their way through that and being able to see kind of above the weeds as well and look at the strategy and the vision and kind of talk to all of the different levels of that practice as well. I don't mean levels hierarchically. I just mean levels as in I'm sitting down today and I've got to pair with an engineer on this particular problem and interaction, as well as I'm going to go and present to the CEO and the rest of the C-level about like where we're heading in the future as well. So I think that you need someone who can kind of cross the chasm in that respect, as well as being able to relate to everybody on like throughout that journey as well, and talk about design and kind of get them really engaged and passionate about what they're trying to achieve as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just to add to that, I think someone needs to, articulate the value of design. If you think about all our business metrics today, it's on financials, and it doesn't have any space for customer satisfaction or their voice or being different or unique or fun or delightful, all the things people actually care about and why they go back to brands again and again. So if you can't articulate what that means and really drive that business value conversation, that's that relatable part to not only you internally, but also to external investors and clients and partners.
Yeah. Question for you, Megan, more on, I guess, coming from a design background, you personally, and then I guess growing into that leadership role, like what were some of the challenges, I guess, that being able to straddle both kind of components, like how did you, I guess, grow into that?
Look, it's really tough making the transition from being someone who is the individual contributor to like stepping back and giving the team that runway and trusting them to do the job as well as I think, in that adjustment of being the person that is always just on the tools and kind of you've got your manager there to like they're having to learn all of the management style of things, approach things with even more emphasis on the leadership angle as well. It was really challenging, and I would also say like almost caused a bit of this like who am I as a person, and like am I using people? Like I'm going out for all of these coffees. Am I actually doing work? I'm always talking about work when I do this, but just like a lot of very kind of conflicting feelings like throughout that period as well. Like I'm comfortable with it now, but it was like a really tough transition, I would say. And I still find it hard at times at 99 Designs. Like I do have to jump on the tools and do that stuff, and I find it hard to not get too sucked into that particular project I'm working on, and being able to step back and then look at the overall program of work and remember, hang on, I've got to have one-on-ones with my team members and they really need me, and they need me to like help clear the way for them on some of their stuff. So
yeah, okay, cool. Tara, do you want anything to add to that piece?
Yeah, I think I've in the last about 6 weeks, I've stepped into more of a leadership role. And again, the operations and not glazing over when I see a spreadsheet is always a different twist. I think I've kind of mourned some of the things about being on the tools that I really loved. I think the favorite part of my job was telling a user story and surprising an expert. And I've got my quotation bunny hands up. You can't see on the podcast, but you'd have this executive who'd say, I'm an expert in this and I know everything. When I could surprise them or give them that aha moment or make their jaw drop, I was like, yes, I've done my job. And now that realization of I'm never going to be in another user interview. I'm never going to be able to tell that story anymore. You know, that's old Tara, and new Tara is realizing that other people need to be able to do that job. So that's sort of been, a bit of a difficult transition, but also some really great stuff in the transition of seeing people grow and giving them that runway and that opportunity. And, now just meeting new clients at sort of a different level and getting them on board and on the journey to pave the way for my team to do that work. So I think the other thing is prioritization. You get at a certain point where you could do 20 things and now you can only actually do 2. Yeah. So what are the 2 that actually matter? And that choice is so crucial. And I think that's where it's either going to fall apart or, it's going to go really well, is deciding what are the 2 things that matter. At the end of the day, it's always people. It's always, making sure that someone is okay, that they've got help, that we've won, someone over, that sort of thing, reducing tension, putting out fires, but also looking out for new opportunities. It's always the people stuff that I find that's top of the list.
Yeah, has to be. Yeah. So look, we're discussing culture here quite a bit. And to me, culture is the first and foremost most important thing. But how do you define the effectiveness of your culture? Like it's a big question. I get asked all the time when I speak to people and they're like, they hear me speak about culture and then they go, well, how do we know if our culture is good or our culture is bad at the moment? Do we have any thoughts on that? I know it's a big question.
Well, I also think that it's almost subjective as well, like if it's good or a bad culture, right? Because everybody's different. I don't know exactly how to tell if it's good or bad. One of the things that we've done recently is an employee engagement survey as a way to kind of get some kind of metric to just see how do we compare now to the previous 12 months. And while we don't have an individual metric for that, we've at least listened to the entire team across the world, and we've got different areas where we know that we can improve or where we're really succeeding within that culture. But I would say as a team member, I think that if I'm really enjoying coming into work and I feel really energized by my work environment, the mission that we're on, the people around me, and things are kind of clicking, then for me personally, I feel like we're on the right track with the culture.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you're more of you've come from a startup background in 99 Designs, and now I wouldn't exactly call it a startup. You're well over 100 and something people.
Yep.
But in Tara's world, Tara's from your design, it's a little bit more difficult, and tell me if I'm wrong here, because the consultants go out and they work within more difficult and sometimes non-design organizations.
Yeah. Tell
me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the first question was about what does good culture look like. I think for me personally, it's when on Sunday night I'm excited to go to work on Monday, massive nerd, but I'm sort of one of the thank God it's Monday.
Your school bag packed.
I really like my job and I like our people, and it feels like a family and a community. And on Monday I look around at stand up and see, are people jazzed up to be here? So for me that's a bit of a symbol if people are going well. Yeah. But we always talk about the design rule of 3, which is design thinking, design doing, and design culture. And quite often clients bring you in because you've got that secret sauce that's a tangible thing they can't put their finger on. And anyone can make a journey map and anyone can call themselves a designer. But as you bring in a pod of team members and they just sort of feed off of that culture. And we had a client in Melbourne where this random guy just sort of after the design sprint sat with us. We're like, hey, don't you need to be at your desk? He's like, no, I'm just going to hang with you guys. And in the end, he just sort of joined the team and became part of us. And
he joined yours?
No, he joined the project team, but he didn't want to go back to his day job. And that was this really good sign of we've done our job of creating this sort of aura around the team. And it's all to do with the space, the cadence, the way we work, what we're producing. He found that we were doing things that really mattered. He was learning new skills, really great vibe in the team. So we bring that into clients. What that means is 2 things. Clients are like, this is great. I'm learning from you. But what it can also mean is that designers feel drained in the sense that they bring in this culture and people are just feeding off of them, and then it gets slowed down, or they're sort of getting leached off from the culture aspect, and they feel like I'm just giving and giving and giving, and not always getting back. So that's why it's really important for us to say, all right, when do we come back home? Fridays. How do we bring more clients and residents? And now it's actually something I use almost as a sales pitch with clients. We're going to select you to be a client in residence to come work in our space, to feel that, to see that, to work in that environment, to have the barista know your name, to have a space, environment, and tools that work for you, and to be part of that team environment, working very, very differently, away from the corporate flex desk, 1,000 email per day culture. But it's a double-edged sword. The designers feel that they give a lot, and the clients are like, this is great. So how do you find the middle ground?
Yeah, it's kind of tough, because when I hear of all the great things, like the barista knowing your order, it's a simple one, but it's a really effective one. I love it when it happens. But if every organization in the world just buys that blueprint and reproduces it, what's it going to look like?
But they won't, because they think that's a cost, and we see it as culture, and that's a very different lens.
Yes, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I was playing devil's advocate there. I was just gonna put it out there, but it's just really interesting because it goes back to the ping pong table thing of where people start up a startup and they're like, got to get the neon light on the wall, got to get the ping pong table going, got to get the tournament set up on a Wednesday. So it's just really interesting. So look, we're coming towards the end of the topic that we've been discussing here. So Megan, I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask you 3 key questions that are going to be used on all the podcasts from moving forward.
Okay.
So you personally, what is the one professional skill that you wish you were better at?
I think it's managing all of the things that I've got going at any given time. So I kind of visualize it as a circus performer with many, many spinning plates and just trying to ensure things that don't drop. And I think, as Tara was saying earlier, it's knowing what the 2 things are that you kind of, have to prioritize as well. So it's kind of that constant juggle of all the things.
Okay. Yeah. Tara?
I think for me, it's patience. Not only patience with others and how quickly things move, but also patience with myself. Every now and again, my partner will put his hand on my shoulder and go, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And so I think as well, making sure that I'm sustainable with my energy. So in the last 48 hours, 2 client workshops and a podcast and teaching at uni. Making sure that I've got enough energy left for the right things. And part of that's having, a medical history where faced with my mortality at the age of 30 and going, I've got so much to do in this life, but also just being able to say, you know what, you don't have to do everything, and just have patience, do the right things and prioritize and have a bit of downtime. Yeah,
that's the mindset. A lot of the mindset. Second big question here. I feel like we need a drum roll. What is the one? Don't do the drum roll. Our editor will go nuts. So what is the one thing in the industry that you wish you'd be able to banish?
Banish is such a strong word. So
intentional choice of words.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be grey. I wanted it to be quite black and white.
Yeah.
One thing you want to be able to banish from the industry.
I think egos and the fear of people not knowing the answer to a question as well. So and trying to protect their pride, right? Because I think it's okay to not know everything, and you don't need to have a big ego. And in fact, it's better to just be down to earth and work with other people.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So
yeah. Tara?
I'm going to flip around and say what I wish there was more of in the industry is that people were more curious. I think there's this fear of, you work differently and you might be hypothesis driven and I come at it from a different perspective. And it's quite interesting that that's met often with aggression or this judgment that it's bad. And I wish more people would just be more open to go, well, why do you think that? And just asking that simple question, because I put my heart on my sleeve. Design is an extension of me. And, there's that element of sort of rejection or judgment or, it's not credible often from people in corporate land, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's true. So one last question before we wrap this up. So what is the message you'd give to emerging human-centered design talent for the future? So there's a lot of people, doing the courses are coming out and they're trying to get into the industry. What message can you give them for the future?
I think that would be get stuck in. Don't feel like you need to spend $10,000 and quit your day job and go and do an individual course. You're likely to find that there are things that you can do within your current day job or the life situation that you're in where you can bring in more human-centered design thinking as well. So I would say don't feel like you need to kind of do that really official formal learning to actually start to make a difference.
Yeah, I think it's a craft, and the more doing, the better you get. I think for me, it would be, don't listen to the naysayers. You know, when I first learned design, my boss said, you know, Terry, you can't just do design. You're going to have to do user testing and client tours and all this other random stuff. Yeah. The best thing I ever did was not listen and just do what I really felt passionate about. And now I run a team of amazing designers, and I am so honored and lucky and can't believe that that's what I do, because I was just like, no, laser focused, you know, don't listen to all the people who are like, but you have to do this and that, and you don't have your CV. And I said, well, cool, I know that my CV won't get me the job. I just need to talk to someone and show how excited I am.
Yeah. Passion goes a long way.
Yeah.
All right. Look, a very big thank you to Megan Dell for being on the podcast, and also Tara. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time. We'd love to have you back some point in the future.
Thank you.
So there you have it. I hope you found that conversation helpful. We'd love to get your feedback or thoughts on this topic, and to join in the conversation, go to thisishcd.com and register to join the Slack channel, where you can get in touch with me and Megan and Tara as well. We use the Slack channel to help shape future episodes of the podcast, as well as share interesting design-related content every single day. We've also started a book review section and are actively looking for people to review design books. So if you've read a design book recently, join up and tell us all about it. We'd love to potentially include your review in future podcasts. Also, we are actively looking for sponsorship for the podcast, with 100% of the sponsorship money going directly to Cara Care, an incredible NGO who helps support children who've suffered abuse. You can also donate directly to Cara Care by clicking on the $ inside the media player on the thisishcd.com website. So if you've got any questions about sponsorship, please get in touch with me at Gerry, Gerry, at humana, humana.design. That's Gerry, Gerry, at humana.design. Thanks so much. See you again soon.